Here's a little history lesson for you. Way back in the old days, Dark Soul 1, there exists a spell called Karmic Justice. And what it do here, you take too many hits, you blowed up and do damage to people who been hitting on you. Now, I was always mad at a hornet that they didn't put that in Dark Soul 3, because it would have made a whole mess of good there. But they didn't put it in that game, and that always rubbed me the wrong way like alligator skin. So then I said to myself, they got it in Elden Ring. But as per usual, Wiz, I knew in my heart of hearts I could never just make a build what does one thing and not two. Only thing better than have a build that do one thing is have a build that do another. Having a build that do two things a pretty interesting way to go about your life of living. So I said, you know, another thing I always want to do is I always want to come away with a new build that could use the Carian Knight Sword. See, that old Carian Knight Sword, it got a special property on its heavy attack. What for I'ma call R2. That R2 button, I tell you what that do. What it do is, when you press that button and hold it, you get some blocking happening there. And you can block attacks. Now, it's not a very good block, mind you, but it is a block. And it can be buffed. That's right, you can buff it up if you want to choose. You can do that with the Great Shield Talisman. It'll buff the block property on the sword. Another way you can buff the block property is by two-handing that old sword. But let's assume you don't want that. Let's assume you don't want to two-hand that old sword. Let's assume you want to one-hand that. Well then, tell you what you can do. You can cast Scholar's Shield there on the shield. And for some reason, that increase the guard properties of the sword in your right hand, even though you buff the shield and not the sword. I don't know why it works, but it does. Now, here's another interesting thing. That law of causality, that karmic justice, going back a ways in Dark Soul 1. One of the quick ways to proc that spell was to have a shield that didn't block 100% of damage. What for? On account of that way you could take a little bit of damage and trigger the spell. So, if you're blocking with a sword, and that sword block isn't very good, then it stands to reason that that will proc that law of causality. So you can manage to block, attack, and explode for extra damage, all in one go. This build right here called I Fought the Law, and the Law Won. Now, I know The Clash, okay? But that song was written and performed by somebody before them. I think their name was old Jody and the Cricket. Something along them line.
Sorry to interrupt there, old man of the mountain riot. Old Appalachia man riot. It was actually Sonny Curtis of the Crickets. Right? So the Crickets was the name of the band. Sonny Curtis was the guy in the band, the Crickets. But the most popular version of the song was the Bobby Fuller 4. I wrote the law. I fought the law. Sorry, not I wrote the law. I misspoke there. But then, yeah, the Clash version, that's probably the one I would say most people are familiar with at this point. Although the Dead Kennedys also did a version of I Fought the Law. Although I think that they changed the lyrics, in a pretty meaningful way. Anyway, back to you, old mountain man riot. Tell them about the law of causality.
Will you shut that old mouth up, boy? Your elder talker, you. And you come interrupt me telling me about who wrote the song I Fought the Law. Oh, Sonny Curtis of the Cricket. Yeah. Let me tell you something about law of causality. Is it good? No. Is the damage good? No. Could you make a damage better? Yeah, probably. But that's not what this build is all setting out to do on him mission. See, this build set out to do the blocking with the sword first and foremost, and then we just added the law of causality because we could, and it made sense to do. Now people say, oh, why don't you use the exploding physic? Well, because that's good at exploding physic. Exploding physic will also damage you, the user. Law of causality won't damage you, the user, because you had to take damage in order to proc it. Well, that old exploding physic that you can get, that thing right there ain't no joke, boy. That'll kill a man. And it'll kill him no problem. I ain't looking for that. I'm looking for a little bit of that silliness. A little bit of that folly or twaddle. That's what I'm looking for in my ways. I'm looking for some of that nonsense. So that's what I do. Now you welcome do whatever you want to do. But this is what I did. And if you're interested in such a thing, you can keep watching the video and it'll tell you about the ways that I did it. Now, I've seen a lot of people falling for the law of causality. I'm gonna tell you what. Now, it might be tempting to say, law of causality? Oh, more like law of casual. They're casuals to be suckered in by such an obvious trap. Now, that might be something you say, but let me ask you something. How many times you seen law of causality? Probably not many. So while it may be slightly foolish, these people right here, they might be slightly foolish. Well, not everybody's seen that old spell. Hell, I'd wager most ain't. Let me tell you something. On the old PlayStation, only about 30% of the players done killed that Moog. Now you gotta kill Moog in order to get that law of causality. You gotta kill Moog and talk to old Gideon Ofnir, Father of the Year. And when you talk to old Gideon, he give you the spell. Now if only 30% of the players has ever killed a Moog, well what that mean is only 30% have even had access to look at the spell. Or no, some percentage of them there, baby, has only even ever done that. An even smaller percentage has even seen it. It's just occurred to me, baby. It's just occurred to me that I thought I was old man of the mountain way. But it's starting to sound, baby, like maybe I'm a dream. Like maybe this whole thing's just been a dream. And let me tell you something. When I find these boys and they running around out here and they think they're real hot stuff, just running around using all their YouTube bills, and then they come across something as silly as what I'm using, and then I manage to take them down anyway, well, that's hard times, baby. That's hard times.
Okay, I have to stop. This just this just turned into the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. The build. Let's talk about it. So one of my hey, look, there you go. Boom, exploding physic. 1200 damage. Okay, I'm not trying to do that. If you want to do that, that's fine. But I'm doing something different. Anyway, one of my least favorite enemies, it's not even really an enemy, but one of my least favorite encounters, I guess, in Elden Ring is when you're in the consecrated snowfield and you are trying to make your way to the church that the Albinoric woman wants, I can't remember her name, I keep wanting to say Loretta, that's the wrong, but you know who I'm talking about. There's that little side quest you can do. Latina, that's her name. Latina wants you to take her to that church, and on the way there, there's a turtle, and it's just blasting off all kinds of crazy, like, I don't know, magic explosions, right? That drives me absolutely crazy. Look at my co-invader here, by the way. Look at this. What a smart play. I call that thing the Kerplodin turtle. It's the Kerplodin turtle. And so I started equipping all this turtle stuff on my build because, you know, the turtle shield gives you extra stamina. It doesn't have 100% block. You take some damage through it. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect for what I was trying to do. And so then I was like, all right, well, you know, we're going to make a guy who wants to be a turtle. And so he's like this crazy exploding turtle knight. And so that's what we did. That's the build that we made. Who's we? I can hear you say. The people who watch me stream, you know. But I stream for like 10 to 12 hours a day. So, you know, maybe you missed some of this stuff. You know, maybe you didn't get to see, you know, maybe you're not able to tune in to streams. You know, well, here you go. Here it is for you. You're getting to see it now. This powerful turtle knight who's on his way. I've got to talk a little bit about a buddy of mine, Project Goof. A long time ago during Dark Souls 3, he used to make a little video series where he made a character who looked like a turtle. And there was an armor in Dark Souls 3 that had a turtle shell on its back. And he would just walk around with this fresh build who didn't have any good items or anything like that. All he had was the stuff that was like legitimately obtained in the early areas. And he was fighting these invaders who had all this late game gear. And he was just smoking them. And that character was called Tip Tup, something like that. So I took a little bit of that for my character's name. This is Shellborn Tupham. But yeah, I got to give a shout out to the OG turtle build that Project Goof did like 5-6 years ago, whatever it was. But yeah, so I guess one thing I should talk about more is the ability to buff your sword block by buffing your shield. That definitely feels unintentional. But because there's only there's only 2 weapons that will benefit from that. Like, there's no way to block with your right hand weapon if you have a shield in your left hand. Like, there's no other weapon that does this except for the Lazulite whatever sword. The one that the wizards have. And it's just another straight sword, you know? But the point being, I think it's unintentional that the shield grease buffs your right hand block. You can't buff the shield and then put it on your back and keep the buff. If you could do that, then maybe it might benefit other weapons, because then you could, you know, hold your weapon with 2 hands and block with it. But you can't do that, because when you buff the shield, you put the shield in your left hand, obviously, right? I'm thinking. The wheels are turning. You have the shield in your left hand, obviously. Okay, well, if you put it on your back and you 2-hand your weapon, that buff goes away. Now I'm thinking. You could, actually. You would have to put the shield in your right hand, buff the shield, and then the weapon in your left hand would block on L1, left bumper, and it would attack on L2. Right? That sounds... No. You would use your Ash of War. You would use your right hand of weapons, Ash of War. Jesus. I don't think it matters, is what I'm getting at. I think that this is like probably unintentional that the sword is getting buffed like this. But it doesn't matter because there's only 2 weapons that can do it, right? And it's not like you're giving the weapon an absurd, you know. Can it block more? Yeah. Yes. Does that make it do more damage or anything like that? No. So, like, it's obviously like an unintentional thing, but you know, it's not really making anything crazy overpowered or anything like that. I don't think. The wheels in my head are still turning to try and think of if there's a way to make this some absolute nightmare, and I just can't think of how it could be. All right, anyway, so that's that. I've said my piece. Is there anything else that I need to talk about? I talked about the shield, the Great Shield Talisman. You need that for the sword. Oh, the Turtle Talisman, the Turtle Shell Shield, all that stuff for the extra stamina regeneration. This build, it has like enough stats to use the Turtle Shield, 14 strength, and enough stats to use the Carian Knight Sword, which is like 10, 10, and 18 or 19, something like that. So I started off as a prisoner. I started off as the prisoner class, and I leveled my strength up to 14. I leveled my intelligence up to 19 or whatever it was supposed to be, 18 or 19, and the rest went into vigor and endurance, so that you've got HP and you've got stamina to block, because that's important. That's good to have. I've got a few spells on the build. Obviously, we've got the Scholar's Shield, and we've got Law of Causality, which is an incantation. That's a miracle. But it's cast with intelligence. It takes 29 intelligence to cast this miracle. So I can do that if I put the int tier, the intelligence tier, in my Wondrous Physic. And so that's what I have done. I put the intelligence tier in my Wondrous Physic. That gives me an extra 10 intelligence. And now I can cast Law of Causality. I've also got Night Maiden's Mist, and I've also got Freezing Mist. I've got those. Right there, you just saw me make a terrible mistake. I buffed my shield and then went to cast Law of Causality, which means I have to put my shield away. And so I lost my shield buff. So we have to, you know, think about this and do it in the logical order. You have to cast Law of Causality first and then cast, you know, Scholar's Shield. Assuming you want to, you know, do it this way. So the Law of Causality, the damage I'm assuming is sacred. If you wanted to have better Law of Causality damage, you could have like a, you know, sacred damage up buffs, but that wasn't something that I was too concerned with. Also, it's worth noting, I did the entire Frenzy quest on this build so that I could have a talisman with a 0 faith requirement. And it doesn't increase the damage of Law of Causality. Law of Causality appears to be pretty flat damage. You can also proc Law of Causality with certain things. Lava works. Night Maiden's Mist, you can proc it on yourself with that. You can do a lot of silly shenanigans, and I got a lot of silly shenanigans for the next video. But I'll show the build off here so you can see the stats and everything, even though I just told them to you. You just didn't take me at my word. Now you want to see it for yourself. Alright, well, see it for yourself. This is Saint Riot, and Old Man of the Mountain Saint Riot, signing off. And we'll see you in the next one. Until then, later, y'all.